Alrighty guys, brand new information. Diablo 3 is getting a major update. We're talking about getting solo self-found over here, as you can see. And on top of that, there's going to be, I guess, these new portals where there's some super hard content to go ahead and actually do. So starting right off, let's go over when this patch will actually be hitting. So right now, this is on the PTR, hitting in just 5 more days. Actually, 3 more days now. 3 more days and we get this giant patch. I'm super excited to test it out for you guys. But let's go ahead and go over what's going to be in here. So they're mentioning that, yeah, there's solo self-found. There's going to be also some class balancing. I'm just going to give you guys the important information that you guys more than likely want. So there's going to be some changes to some of the legendaries in the game. So the most important thing that we're getting that they mentioned over here is, again, solo self-found. That means, for those guys that don't know, it is a mode where you cannot interact with other players. It's basically just playing, like, you know, offline. Think of it like that. You can't party up with other people. But this is Season 29, Visions of Enmity over here. Okay. So this is going to be some sort of portal, and so how it works, and you can interact with it, I guess, at level 1. So it doesn't actually specify what these new buffs are going to be for our character, because there's always some giant power that we're going to be acquiring. So they are going to have these new diabolical fissures, and when you go ahead and step through them, and it says Nephilim level 1 or higher, so you're going to be able to engage with this immediately, which I like. Have a chance at encountering one of these fissures by slaying demons in the open world. So this is going to be interesting because normally if you've played any of the Diablo games, usually there's some sort of season mechanic, and we just basically just do greater rifts, and then on top of that, of course, doing your bounties when you do need to do those. So this is going to be in the open world, so that's just like going in random spots. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out, as well, you're not going to be able to upgrade your gems if you do that. Nonetheless, should you be smiting of Hellspawn, trigger a fissure, press onward into a vision of Enmity. What horrors await the other side are unknown, but these instances are rich in rewards. I hope there's some sort of new mechanic. They don't explain exactly if there's going to be newer items that are specifically only in here, or what kind of special legendary powers that we can acquire, like what's the seasonal theme to gain additional power here. Now, the monsters are going to add new affixes, meaning that these monsters will have things are going to be making it a little bit more difficult. So we have Enervating over here, which creates an area around the monster that reduces the player's movement speed by 65% and cooldown reduction by 50%. So this is a massive, massive thing to actually run into if the player's in the vicinity of the monster. So my suggestion would be maybe don't play melee. How big is this aura around the monster? I don't know, but generally, if you're playing, you know, ranged, hopefully you can just melt the content so fast that the monster doesn't really even apply this effect. Nonetheless, there is another one called Neurotic, and it says the player's healing is reduced by 65%. Monsters have a damage over time effect that deals 180% of the player's max health over 30 seconds. This effect is removed if the player is healed above 95%. So this is going to be making so you can't just sit there and, I guess, fight for a long extended period of time without having some sort of heal. So it'd be interesting to see if this even matters. It's even this, because if you play Diablo 3 for the most part, unless you're pushing like really high GRs, which let's be honest, most people kind of get burnt out and don't push GR 150s, but you can melt content pretty fast in Diablo, so maybe these don't even matter. But this is the one that I was kind of worried about. Resources. Hitting a player removes 65% of their maximum resource, because Diablo 4 just removed the resource burn, and then they're going to add it into Diablo 3. I'm not sure how I feel about this, because most builds in Diablo, you need your resource in order to deal damage, and is there some sort of internal cooldown, as Diablo 3's density is much higher. But if it's only on like some of these elites, then it might not be that big of a deal. But this could be something to look at, where if it's a ranged or an AoE on the floor, and let's say you're playing melee and you're trying to do damage, this could be something that would be a very difficult thing to run into. But anyways, this is the thing that I'm the most excited about. There is a cap of Paragon at, well, it's funny because in this over here, they show the character being 850, but you can only get 800 Paragon points. So that is the maximum. So Paragon is actually capped, which is great, because if you guys know, I like to climb the leaderboards for the first like week, and after the first week, it just doesn't really become that competitive, at least for me, because I look at some people's Paragons, and I'm like, dude, this guy hasn't slept in like, you know, 1 week. Is that even possible? And more than likely it could be a bot, right? So this is going to be very nice because 800 Paragon points is relatively achievable, I would say, even for like a more casual player, especially if you can get power leveled by a friend. I mean, you can do this probably in like, you know, a weekend, right? But nonetheless, this is awesome. But there's a huge change over here. Each category can now have 200 Paragon points. So this is going to be actually a really cool idea. And the reason why I mentioned that it's really cool is normally you'd get, does it like 10% attack speed, 10% cooldown, I don't know, crit hit chance goes to, what, like 5% crit chance? And then you can have crit damage go up to like 50%. But now you can scale this to be way, way higher. But remember, you only have 800 points total, and it's only 200 in each category. So I think this is a cool idea because it lets you have points that matter a little bit more, because before you would max out everything, slam someone into movement speed and then your resource, and then it's all right into your character's main stat. And this allows a little bit more flexibility with potential build diversity, especially getting that cooldown reduction could be really cool, and you could get more cooldown reduction than you could ever get, which may enable some cooler things. But for the most part, I think this is a great change. So they mentioned over here that they're making it so you only have a maximum amount of movement speed though. So that's kind of going to be interesting. Also with area damage, it says area damage should perform the same, if not a bit better. So if you slam everything into your area damage, you're running a build that can group up everything, man, you are going to be shredding content. So area damage is probably going to be like one of the best stats to go ahead and throw it. I think it's under utility. But anyways, I mentioned some changes with the greater rifts in terms of the monsters. Some of the different monsters got changed. I was watching Rax's video. You'll see in that, like, there's a Diablo suggestion from like most of the Diablo partners. My name is on that video too, that Rax uploaded. We gave a bunch of suggestions to what we wanted, and some of the suggestions were to like basically make some of these rifts a lot better, a lot more consistent. Some of the monsters would either be too hard to kill, or they would randomly do certain things that would do like way too much damage, or you would have bad maps. They basically kind of fix those. Basically, if you're not a competitive player, think of it like, well, it's more quality of life. It's going to be more consistent at the end of the day. Anyways, on top of that, they added a little icon for Flying Dragon. This is actually pretty helpful for certain builds that need to activate certain things, conventional elements on your timing windows of Flying Dragon. But this is going to be just a little bit nicer. And then also, Requiem Separate is wasn't calculating. I'm guessing this is a huge nerf to the Necromancer though. So yeah, if you are, I believe this is the one that gives you the essence. When you, I guess you could overflow, you get way more damage, but nonetheless, that is getting a nerf. And they also said Haunted Visions used to remove skeletal mages from the simulacrums only if the player had Grim Scythe on their action bar. Now it will remove skeletal mages regardless. Okay. But as far as Miscellaneous over here, they removed the requirement to do set dungeons, which is actually a pretty cool thing. And then now you just have to do an Echoing Nightmare, which you're going to do your augments. So I would say that this is just like a whatever. It doesn't really matter for most people that if they don't want to do the whole seasonal journey thing to get the extra stash tabs. It is a nice addition to get more stash tabs for sure. But on top of that, they changed it. Says due to the unique animation of how Hamlin dies, there were many issues with how it rewards kill credit. Hamlin now rewards kill credit to the closest player on death. And then the Corrupted Angels and all variations would sometimes do an attack that deals double damage. Again, it's quality of life on most of these, and then they remove certain like maps. So this is what I think is the most important, which are the class balance changes. So let's go over the Crusader. This one is actually pretty cool. So with the Icon's leniency over here, the Blessed Shield would increase the damage of your Blessed Shield by a certain amount. Now, it says each enemy hit. Now they're changing it to each enemy hit increases the damage of your Blessed Shield, but this stacks up to 100 times, no more individual stacks. So I'm pretty sure this means that it would do way more damage in the short term, but in the long term, since there is no well, you only have 3 seconds anyways. Now it is 6 seconds that can stack up to 100 times. So logically, it's going to be a massive increase, but let's say your attack is incredibly fast. It would be, in theory, a nerf to like, you know, maybe single targets, because you would have nothing to bounce it to and you would just get more stacks. But overall, it's probably going to be considered a buff in most situations because, again, you only have 3 seconds duration anyways, but if it refreshes, that can matter. But for the most part, I would say it's probably a quality life buff. Next up, the Vigilante Belt. It had no bonus, so now this is going to get another legendary power that says while riding your Warhorse, Fist of the Heavens deals increased damage equal to your movement speed and is automatically called down on a random nearby enemy at the interval based on your attack speed. If it is on your action bar. So there is a build where it would just activate your Fist of the Heavens, and it was a really good speed farming build where you just run around and just deletes everything. So this is going to be kind of cool. I'm interested to see if this is going to be one of the best builds in the entire game, because it's also equal to your movement speed, so you get a massive extra buff to that, and on top of that, it's scaling off of your attack speed. And if we go back to this, you could slam everything into your attack speed. Now, what are the breakpoints? I don't know, but I'm sure someone on Mackerel will eventually have that data, and we'll mess around with this. Okay, so Demon Hunter, this is the class that we played, we got rank 2 with on the current season. So we played the God DH, which is the most popular build, and let's see what it's getting. So it is actually getting kind of a buff, and I say kind of because I'm gonna have to really understand it via playing. So it says that you gain 4 seconds of momentum when attacking with a primary skill and a maximum duration of 20 seconds. Your primary skill deals 10% increased damage per stack. Now, the new wording is you gain 4 seconds of momentum when attack with a primary skill and a maximum duration of 20 seconds. This duration begins counting down after a delay of 5 seconds after each application. Your primary skills deal 10% increased damage per second of momentum. It says we want the Gears of Dreadlands to be easier to play optimally. However, we had to forego the visual indicator that showed stacks. So it only drops after a delay of 5 seconds. So in theory, every 5 seconds you just activate it once. You don't see the thing. But I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Overall, I would say this is a buff because that means you can keep it at 20 before the duration even starts counting down, so you can maintain it higher. So logically, I mean, at least from what I understand, and I've been playing a lot of this build, it's a buff because you're going to be able to, you know, upkeep it much higher instead of waiting till it goes to 16 or 17 and then you cast it again to maintain the highest one. Okay, that's it for the Demon Hunter though. I was kind of hoping that we get some more legendaries, but it all comes down to what are these new monsters that we open up? What are these going to be dropping? Because there's got to be something else here. They didn't reveal it yet. Maybe they want us to discover it, and I can respect that. I actually kind of do like that. I like the surprise factor, and I'll tell you guys every single thing. So if you're new here, make sure you guys subscribe, and I'll show you guys the special powers that we get because they didn't really reveal it. But these are the other balance changes. So we got the Witch Doctor. So Witch Doctor Cluck Eye. Now what's interesting, isn't this a bow? I'm pretty sure it shoots out a chicken, right? So it has a 25 to 50% chance to cluck when attacking. I don't even remember if there was any builds that really used it. I think it was kind of more of a meme weapon like the Roderick Hamburger than anything. But anyways, now it's a Witch Doctor item. It says casting Hex. Angry Chicken turns all your pets into exploding chickens. Chickens deal 150% to 200% increased damage, and Angry Chicken deals 50% more damage per exploded chicken. So this will be really cool. Maybe you can create a fetish army and then have all of them turn into chickens, and this is going to be hilarious. I think this is going to be one of the most entertaining things to see, definitely. And then Monojuma's Way. So your Hex Angry Chicken explosion damage was increased, and slain enemies triggered additional explosion. Your Hex Angry Chicken lasts 15 seconds, and your movement speed as a chicken is increased by additional 100. So these in red, by the way, are the things that are removed. Next up, while you are an Angry Chicken, you spawn a chicken every second that seeks out enemies and deals 25% of your Angry Chicken explosion damage. Now it's changed to your Hex Angry Chicken explosion damage increased by 2,000%, and slain enemies trigger an additional explosion. So you can have these crazy chain explosions. Man, I'm really thinking about Witch Doctor now. Like, I'm in my first class. Next up, your Hex Angry Chicken lasts 15 seconds, and movement speed as a chicken is increased by an additional 100% while gaining 75% damage reduction and for 5 seconds after. And then, while you are an Angry Chicken, you spawn a chicken every half second that seeks out enemies and deals 100% of your Angry Chicken explosion damage. So it's twice as fast right here, because this used to be every second. And on top of that, it deals 100% versus 25. So it's a massive buff. And then some like bug fixes. They talk about how to connect to PTR, which is just like you just click on on the Diablo launcher, you just click on it. But I think this is a really awesome change. I'm really excited about this season 29. I want to see what's in these portals. These portals look crazy in terms of like the color. I love what they've done, and they're solo self-found. So this is looking pretty good. And again, it's gonna be starting on August 15th, and I'll be streaming it, and we're gonna try to go push for rank 1 on when the game launches. And on top of that, on the PTR, we'll mess around with it as well. Anyways, what do you guys think of this brand new patch? I think it's sounding pretty dang cool. There's kind of some mystery to it, but in terms of like the changes to the characters, I want to see these powers, because if it's only these changes, I mean, this is a great change too, but if it's only these changes with the like legendary items, I would feel very underwhelmed, because because these are supposed to drop some new rewards. It says these instances are rich with rewards. I don't want the same rewards, especially if our Paragon is 800, our character would become less powerful. So we'll have to wait and see what's in here, and on top of that, what's the new seasonal theme in terms of like the special powers, because it's got to have something, right? I don't know, we see multiple bosses over here. Anyways, I'll cover it when it does come out, so subscribe if you guys want to see it, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.